Hi, everybody. I'm Kraig Kann. Right now, on this edition of Tracks to Success, he knows the grind of the PGA Tour and the grit it takes to earn your way onto it. A national champion at Clemson, three-time winner as a pro, and a guy who knows what it means to stand over a putt with everything on the line. But now there's a second act. Always a grinder with a gifted game and a calm presence under pressure. His competition has shifted from the course to the conference room. Today, he's not reading greens, he's reading risk. As an executive at Arthur J. Gallagher, he's helping organizations navigate uncertainty with clarity, leadership, and vision. And just like in his playing days, he brings a winning mindset to every meeting. From tour life to team life, from golf to growth, his journey is about reinvention and staying grounded through it all. His name is Charles Warren, and his track to success starts now.
Welcome to Tracks to Success. This is the podcast that brings you inspiring people and their inspiring stories, how they found their way to the top, and how their path can help you do the same. Here's your host, network broadcaster, C-suite executive, best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur, Kraig Kann.
Charles Warren, it is an absolute pleasure. It feels like just yesterday that we were spending some time together covering golf and you playing golf, me with a microphone. Now we got a microphone for a whole different reason. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Kraig. Great to catch up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into all of your success and what it means and spinning it forward to help other people, let's get to the big question. How many rounds of golf did you actually play this year?
You know, I got to be really honest. It's probably in the 8 to 10 range. It's probably not as much as you would think.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm around the game and go to tournaments, and I'm involved in a roundabout way through my job now. But actually playing golf, I played some with my son. We went over to Ireland and played a few rounds over there, and got to play some rounds here in the U.S. So I played probably, I'm gonna give it 12 times this year.
That's amazing. I mean, most people would be like, okay, now you're working in a different sector, which we're going to get into. You'd still play with people, business, golf, and all that sort of stuff. But I know you're a busy guy, family, and all that. So
Right.
maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't be that surprised. But by the way, can you still go out there and drop a 70 on somebody or a 66?
Yeah, if I have a 2-week lead and I can go practice a little bit, I would say that I could probably get somewhere in that 70 range. I don't know about 66 anymore, but
Okay.
yeah, so it's it's something that I use for in business in a roundabout way from time to time, but I don't see myself wanting to go play golf recreationally. I like to hunt, I like to fish, I like to fly fish and travel and all those types of things. So there's lots of outlets that you can look at.
Okay. So from the golf course then to the boardroom or the conference room, all of that, Arthur J. Gallagher doing work that matters in a completely different way for companies and organizations around the world. But I want you to tell me something before I dive directly into that.
Okay.
Your golf resume is amazing. Okay. And then you have this new resume. What's the thing that's not on your resume that you're really proud of?
Wow. That's a good question. I can answer it from either side of the coin, but I would say,
Sure.
relationships. I think that's important. I mean, we have a great relationship. I knew you from the golf channel and whether it's people in the boardrooms that you meet along the way in pro-ams or whether it's the relationships you form through wherever you're at in life.
Mhm.
I think resumes relationships are not something that show up on a resume, but they're an invaluable tool for anybody, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. I like to tell people that a resume, a piece of paper is what gets you in the door for an interview, or it's what, your bio says about you, but your job is to bring it to life and live it. And can you do that for people? And that's not always easy. Not everybody can do that. They have a lot of cool stuff on a piece of paper, but they
Right.
can't carry that forward to truly help other people and bring it to life. That's my take anyway.
I would agree 100%.
So I want to go to Charles Warren, the younger person, before I get into the older person, kind of give people who don't know you a sense for who you are and what led you to all of this. What was the young Charles Warren like? Was he always dreaming of being a golfer, or did he have other things as well?
Yeah, so it'd be hard to kind of put myself back into the young body and mentality, but I would say that golf was always a big, huge part of everything that I did as a kid.
Mhm.
I was a good junior golfer. I wasn't a great junior golfer. I didn't play a lot of AJGA events or then more national events. So, Larry Penley really, really kind of took a flyer on me at Clemson. And it wasn't really until my sophomore or junior year, I wouldn't say that I really even considered golf as a potential professional path.
Hmm.
I guess in the back of your mind, you always think it's a dream, but I don't think you ever really realize where life's going to take you, what path, what am I going to major in college? What am I good at? I think that's something that kids
Mhm.
struggle with these days, or, just trying to figure out anything that interests them to go figure out what if they can make that a profession. And
Mhm.
so I would say that golf was always a big part of it. And interestingly enough, I think professional golfers, and we'll probably talk about this, but I've worked with a bunch of guys that were successful at the level that I was that are looking to transition or have transitioned. And, when it's all said and done, when you play professional golf and you start down that path, you always assume that you're going to retire from professional golf. And by retire, I mean like not work
Mhm.
anymore. This is my path and I'm going to commit wholly to it 100%. And this is what I'm going to do. And never in the back of your mind do you think that there's a plan B, because there really can't be to succeed at that level. So from that standpoint, I really don't think you try to figure out what another phase of your life or another profession or anything like that would look like until you come to the reality that that's in the past. So I would say until I was 37 or 38 years old, the assumption was always that professional golf was my professional path.
Mhm.
And so, that changed a little bit later, but that's part of it.
So if it wasn't going to be golf when you were younger, right? You didn't realize you were going to have that type of success to ultimately get you to the PGA Tour.
Mhm.
What was plan B potentially?
Yeah,
Business? Was
so
it what you're doing?
my dad was a lawyer, and he was, law was always kind of a consideration. I had, some of my uncles, dentists, doctors, all of those things. I think being a doctor or lawyer when I was a kid in the '80s was kind of the preferred pathway professionally.
Mhm.
Obviously, you know, it's kind of the world has kind of expanded a little bit since then, I think. But I think, really and truly, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I was going to play college golf, so that was going to be a big focus. But I think I was really kind of waiting to see kind of where life took me at that point. So that was really kind of the pathway was really uncertain if it wasn't going to be golf, but I really
Mhm.
didn't, I didn't really believe or think that playing the PGA Tour was ever something within the realm of any type of possibility until maybe my junior or senior year of college.
So 1997, right? Individual title, national championship. That's big stuff, man. What did college golf and that experience teach you about competition, about pressure, about handling a moment that now helps you as well in what you do now?
Yeah, I think there's lots of things that correlate between success athletically and professionally, but specifically to that year, I mean, that was kind of the year that I started to really believe that this was a potential pathway. I'd won the ACC tournament that year, which was my first kind of real big win in college, and then played really good at regionals, and then went to nationals with really no expectations after two really bad national championships the 2 years prior, and went into it with very low expectations, and we got a really hard Conway Farms that week, and it was my ball striking definitely was an advantage that week, and you just really don't think it's going to happen until it happens, especially in the way that it did with Jason Gore doubling the last hole and getting in a playoff with Brad Elder and all those types of things. It really wasn't, it was just an active situation. But I think your the answer to your question would be, I think you've got to be structured and you've got to be very intentional about the way you prepare and do things so that when that moment comes, and sometimes you never know when that moment comes, you feel like you've got the foundation to handle it. And I think that
Mm.
was something that, after the fact, I didn't realize it at the time that all the things that I had done to that point and that had prepared me for that moment, proved to be very successful.
I'm sure Jason Gore really appreciated that throwback to.
Don't worry, he still gives me more guilt about it than you can imagine. So I love Jason; he's a dear friend. So, but
He's great.
we do
He's
reminisce
great.
about that from time to time.
And a Brad Elder throwback too. That's awesome. Okay, a lot of people are like, I don't know who that is. He's such a good guy.
Yeah.
You made the PGA Tour. That's a place that very few get to be. I mean, it's a pinch me situation. I've seen it play out in front of me. 3 wins on what is the Corn Ferry Tour. So for those listening or watching, that's one step below. So you were there, you were running and gunning all your way. Now you don't have a PGA Tour win on that resume, but you do have almost 15 top tens. I mean, that's impressive stuff. And I believe you played in the greatest era that you could have possibly played in. And I think you would probably agree. What's the best memory that stays with you from those years inside the ropes? What's the thing that you look back on, you're like, wow, man, that this is just amazing that I did this?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. I mean, the people, the experiences, being in the last group on Saturday and Sunday at the FBR, the year that Super Bowl was there, that JB Holmes beat Mickelson in the playoff. That was awesome. Playing with Tiger the last round at Bay Hill, one year, that was awesome. I mean, it's just really a collection. I mean, it would be hard to come up with one moment, but I think that just the whole process, the people. I mean, everybody asked me, do you miss playing on the PGA Tour? And I would say I don't really miss the process because people don't understand how grueling and hard the process is, but I do miss the people. And I think that's what really makes the tour. I mean, you were a part of the traveling circus for a number of years, and it's the best, man. It's just a great group of people and a great culture, and it's fun to be a part of. But, things like that, you look back and, Pebble Beach, some years just playing the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach twice. I love Pebble Beach. Those were great experiences. Just all those types of things.
Tracks to Success is proud to have the support of Ahead, true innovators in premium headwear. For more than 25 years, Ahead has been outfitting golfers and supplying headwear for the game's most prestigious events. Head over to aheadshop.com and explore their incredible collection of major championship golf hats. And don't miss their lineup featuring your favorite college teams. If you're looking to dress for success, Ahead is the perfect brand for you. So think ahead and look for it at pro shops and special events across the country. And how about this? For listeners of Tracks to Success, Ahead is offering one of its biggest discounts ever. Visit aheadshop.com and use the code TTS30. That's TTS30 to get not 20% off your purchase, but 30% off. That's right, 30% off with code TTS30. Ahead, the finest in headwear and the official headwear of the Tracks to Success podcast. Available now at aheadusashop.com. We're talking with Charles Warren, true competitor and one of the really good guys in sports that I've come across. I want to talk now about the transition because it's very unconventional from life as a professional athlete to life in corporate America. Two very different things. What was that shift like for you, and how did it even happen? Like, was there a moment that you said, I'm not good enough, or I haven't achieved enough to what you believed you wanted, and there's got to be something else for me? How did it happen?
Man, that's like a 15-minute answer, so I'm going to give it to you as quickly as possible. So yes, I think that's one of the things that I talk to a lot of these young guys that are considering maybe getting out of the game, that feel like they're giving up on their dream. Kind of what the mental process that I went through. And the reality was I had my PGA Tour card for 8 or 9 years, ending in like 2012 or 2011. And so I really said, you know what, I'm going to give this. I think 11 was the year I played good on the Corn Ferry Tour at the beginning of the year. And I basically committed to the Corn Ferry Tour and just turned down the spots that I had on the PGA Tour. And so I basically said, I'm going to give myself 2 years to recommit myself to the game, all these things you hear, and I'm going to really give it everything I got, and I'm going to see where I'm at, and I'm going to just see if the process will lead me back to the PGA Tour. I'm 36 at the time, and, the game was getting younger then. Obviously, it's gotten way younger now. But at the time, I wasn't as competitive as I needed to be. But the biggest thing that I think led me to kind of stepping away from it was I didn't like the process. The process frustrated me. I didn't wake up every day wanting to go get better. I had just kind of gotten really burnt out with the whole process. And I think that was something that I struggle with because I saw everybody else and all these young kids that are coming out that love the process. They loved every aspect of it. And I just got to a
Mm.
spot where I really it wasn't the number one priority in my life. My kids were 5-3, 5-2 at the time. That's obviously a big part of it.
Yeah.
But so I missed the cut at the Corn Ferry Tour Championship down in Jacksonville, and got in my car and just said, you know what, I'm done. That's it. I was signed
Mm.
up for Q school and I was ready to go to Q school, and I called my agent and I spent 4 hours on the phone with him and basically walked through it and said, I don't know what the next phase looks like, but I'm ready
Wow.
for it. And it was definitely tough, but it was
Mhm.
very freeing. I think it was, some people, they take a step out, they take a step back in. They don't ever commit to what they're going to actually do past that. And they always kind
Mhm.
of tip their toe back into golf. And so, I basically said, I'm going to give myself 6 months and I'm going to go and have lunch, dinner, drinks, breakfast, coffee with as many people as I can. And I'm just going to get as many ideas as possible and just kind of see where it takes me. I would say 3 months into it, it became pretty clear that the property and casualty insurance world was really a great path and avenue for all of the relationships that I was fortunate enough to make over the last 15 years through the game of golf. Managing someone's personal wealth, coming, 6 months out of playing the professional golf, that's more of a personal thing that takes a little bit more of a learning curve. So I was like, what is a commoditized yet not completely piece of business that I can get into that would provide me a platform and a medium to go and foster those relationships that I had made into business ones. And roundabout, I narrowed it down to 4 different companies, and then my agent Thomas Parker told me, he said, you need to go
Oh,
talk to Walker Taylor. Walker Taylor works, he's a great amateur player, lives in Wilmington. He was running our Wilmington office. And I called him, and lo and behold, at the time in 2012, there was a Fortune 500 company, Arthur J. Gallagher, that was on Main Street in Greenville, South Carolina, and nobody had a clue what they did.
mm.
And I said, you know what? That seems like a good place for me to go and see what they're all about. Went in, met all the people, fell in love with the people, the office, the culture, understood what they did, understood that this would be somewhere that would really support me. I had mentors, had people that really, Larry Smith, I know you met Larry
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
the way, and Larry really committed to being my mentor. And, he said, I'll give you 2 years and I'll teach you the business. And he did that. And Gallagher just is
Wow.
great. They're very entrepreneurial. A lot of the other brokers like to put you in a box. They want you to do one thing, focus on one thing. And coming from where I was an unconventional hire for sure. And they took a flyer on
Yeah.
me big time. But, that's kind of how I ended up at Gallagher.
Wow. Wow. I always say that proximity to greatness pushes you or it exposes you. What did it do for you being around Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, all those greats that may have helped you now more than you thought it might help you when it was all happening?
I think perspective, maybe. Obviously, you get not only do you get to see those guys at the top of their games, but you get to see guys. You get to be around Jack and Arnold and all these other people, and I think it gives you perspective on the fact that the people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and all these people that everyone idolizes, they're just people that have processes. and
Yeah.
and that is the biggest thing is, Tiger has a process, Phil has a
Yeah.
process. And are they better than you physically? Probably so. Are their processes better than yours? Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that everyone wanted a glimpse of, was a glimpse into Tiger's process. Like, how do you practice? How do you sleep? What do you eat? And I think that it gives you perspective that, you know, you just got to tighten your process and be very intentional about your process and be very aware of how you go about it.
Okay. So what do you think your transferable strength was that worked in both worlds?
That's easy. That's the easiest question you'll ask me, and that is being able to handle failure. I think athletes are inherently built to understand that failure is not failure. It is just a grade on your process. And I think that is one of the things that, in what we'll call a sales role, you're going to deal with a lot of failure. And you can't let it affect your resolve to your process or where your end
Right.
goal is going to be. You just maybe change your process along the way slightly, but you're committed to it. And I think that's, you learn along the way. And, I'm not to say the process that I started on in 2013 working at Gallagher is the same one that I have now, but I just think that being able to handle failure is a huge thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, being able to be comfortable enough with being told no or not right now, or having the patience to let success happen and let the failures that happen along there be a part of the process to that success. I think that's really important stuff. Now, when you were playing golf, it's all about you, man. I mean, that is just what it is. For people that don't know, it's a selfish sport. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're all about team. And I know you've been on teams and I understand that. But how big a difference is that for you shifting from all about me to, all right, how can I help you?
Well, I think if you were to go back to the golf piece of it, I think if you truly dig deep and you want to understand why the Ryder Cup means so much to professional golfers at the highest level, it's because deep down, inherently, they really miss that sense of team that they might have experienced in college or sometime before that with a national team. I would say that one of the things that I missed, I'm more of a team person, and I love that part of it, but the reality is I love the little small teams that I had on the PGA Tour, most of which were former teammates at Clemson. But fast forward to being at Gallagher, I think that's one of the coolest things that we get to do. And I would say if I was to give like what my niche would be, it's quarterbacking large teams of resources and people at Gallagher to solve problems for medium to large businesses. And so I love that aspect. We go in and we win together, we lose together, and then we implement together. That's the cool part of it. The team aspect of it is really cool, and I think the people that embrace it really can be really successful.
In addition to hosting this podcast, Kraig leads the Kann Advisory Group, focused on elevating communication for companies and individuals. Company consulting, team and individual workshops, mind-altering virtual programs. To learn more and to find out why the Elevate workshop has been labeled the most powerful experience in leadership communication, visit cannadvisory.com. And when you do connect, mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the interview.
We're talking with Charles Warren, former PGA Tour professional, 3-time winner on the Korn Ferry Tour, pivot, transition, and now a successful executive at Arthur J. Gallagher. I want to get back to the teams thing that we just talked about for a moment. As you just alluded to, and I mentioned, you've been a part of teams in both golf and now business. So let's talk about leadership as it ties to that and success and what you believe makes great teams tick. What do great leaders really do to help bring out the best in others that you've seen?
Kraig, we touched on this before. I think at the end of the day, great leaders, you can't make yourself a great leader. You can't go to a class. You can't go and say, if I get better at these 5 metrics, I'm going to become a better leader. There's only one definition of leadership, and that's that somebody follows you. And that could be in any role, that could be in any place. And so, I think all great leaders, they have different qualities, but I think, being real, ethics is a huge part of that, but just leading by example. I mean, people like to see people be successful and then learn how they do that. And so, you can sit here and talk about motivating and goal setting and all these types of things, and all those are very important. But at the end of the day, I just think great leaders lead by example, where the people that are looking up to them, look at it and go,
Yeah.
that's somebody that I want to be like. That's the version of myself that I want to be when I'm in that position.
Okay. So athletes transitioning, you mentioned a while back that you know a lot of people who all of a sudden are trying to figure out what their next is.
Mhm.
And I went through a bit of that myself when I was in TV for all those years. I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. And obviously now I'm not doing that. In your mind, do you think athletes are naturally equipped for the business world? Or does it require a whole new skill set that they really do, and maybe you did have to learn to find success?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I would say that yes, yet there is a skill set. And I think that if you look at it this is just my opinion.
Hmm.
So I've had lots of golfers come. They've kind of seen the success that myself and Kyle Thompson and some other folks have had that work at Gallagher have had after golf. And
Hmm.
so when I put them into whatever, and I might know them well, I might not know them well, but when I put them in front of the area president or whoever would be, inevitably hiring them or they would report to, the number one thing that I think all of these people are trying to figure out is what is their business acumen. And they don't need to have a business degree. They don't need to have their, masters in anything, but like, how do you grasp general business concepts? And
Right.
so obviously that's different from job to job. I can speak to it as it relates to the insurance brokerage world, but you got to have a certain level of business acumen to have the kind of the foundation to go in and learn the skill set. But that's the one thing that
Hmm.
I think you also need to understand, and that Larry was very and very adamant with me on is, if you come in 0 being a rainmaker, 10 being the most technical insurance salesperson there is, know where you're on that spectrum and know that you need to head over this way. And I think when you come in, you understand that, look, your knowledge is not that great, but do you have the business acumen to kind of build that foundation to get from 1 to 3? If you do, you can get from 3 to 7. But to get the initial concepts to where you can go in and sit in a boardroom with CEOs of Fortune 1000 or 500 companies and try to provide a solution for them, you got to have a general grasp of what that means to them sitting on the other side of the table.
I don't think people buy processes or products before they have to buy the people.
Totally.
So, all right. You talked about the importance of a following, and that's something that I talk about and help companies with their people try to create in them being a person worth following. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who can own the moment, somebody who can own the room, somebody who can, really make that connection that works. That requires like being sticky, being
Mm-hmm.
known for something and being knowable, not known, knowable. What's your sticky factor? What's your greatest sticky factor?
Yeah, so one of the mentors that I had along the way always said it's not a matter of who you know, it's who knows you. And that's kind of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Knowing people is great, but them having knowing you is probably more important. And so one of the things I think I told you that I'm working on a presentation for we've hired a bunch of young producers in our office. We maybe have 6 or 7 of them, girls, guys, great kids, going
Mm-hmm.
to be great, going to do awesome in our business. But, we're always trying to find ways to present things. And so we've got a lot of technical people that are giving them, tools and those foundational things from an insurance standpoint that are important. But one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I want to talk about is relational selling with them.
Yeah.
And so one of the first exercises I'm going to have them do is write down 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are a big part of you. It could be your hometown. It could be interest. It could be college. It could be sports you played. It could be anything. Family members, family business, whatever. And so write those down and figure out which ones are really integral to your success in this business. And you could do this for any business. But like if you, and then if you do like a Venn diagram, figure out where these things intersect. And those are your sweet spots. Those are the places where you can really go and make a difference in whatever room you're in. And so with me, obviously that's Clemson and that's golf. Those are two of the things that are a big part of me. So I think that anytime that I meet with somebody that I don't really know, I don't force that on them, but a lot of times they might have a connection to Clemson, or they might be golfers or whatever. So I think
Mm-hmm.
understanding what makes you sticky like that, like you say, is really important. And I think, it's something that people need to understand, that, what differentiates you. Like all of these, it's all different. Like
Yeah.
it's all different. And so, but it's all important. It makes you who you are. But you're right. You're not just if you don't do that, you're just another salesperson trying to pitch something off the street that can't provide value and doesn't really, provide something meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it sounds like you just were in my workshop. I mean, it's crazy because that's exactly what we talk about. They dive into a workbook and we got to figure out who you are. And I've got a whole program called A Brand New You. And we need to take those transferable strengths that we have and how do we put those into action? It's great. I love hearing that. Very interesting stuff to hear it from you. You pivoted in a huge way. Competitor, executive, leader as well. Um, I really believe in the value of diverse experiences. How many tools are in your toolbox? And so I got to believe that you believe a non-linear, if you will, career actually makes you stronger as a leader and more interesting in business circles, that you can lean on different things as opposed to one path. Agree?
Agree. And I just think that's experiences. Like I've, when
Mm-hmm.
people that don't know who I am, which is a lot of people, because I am way past the golf phase of it. But having said
Mm-hmm.
that, when they do hear the story, it is interesting. People want to talk about it. People want to hear about it because it is different. And I think it is important that, we've being able to play on the PGA Tour and the Corn Ferry Tour. You're just around a lot of people that provide really neat experiences.
Yeah.
And I think those experiences definitely, they're definitely a big part of who I am and kind of how I approach things.
Okay. So then let's talk about how you can help other people for a second. Um, I have known and know a lot of people that are in their 40s, feeling like, where am I going? Feel like in their 50s, they don't know if they have a next chapter, let alone what it might be. In other words, we talked about sticky before. Now let's focus on people who might be stuck. All right. And I'm not saying you were stuck on the
Yeah,
PGA
no,
Tour.
I was.
Well,
Yeah, I was
okay.
for sure.
Okay. Perfect. Then what would you tell people that they need to do to sit back and go, what's my next? Because I have my story and obviously you have yours. What would you tell people who feel that?
Well, it's tough. Obviously, it's situational. That's a hard, broad question to
Mm-hmm.
answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that you've got to you, you got to be aware. You got to be aware of, in golf, one of the things that all sports psychologists push you to do, you've got to be doing a constant analysis of where you are mentally to know where you need to get to. So if you know
Okay.
you're going down a rabbit hole or a wormhole that's not productive, you got to get out of it. And you got to have a trick to get out of it. So holistically, back to the bigger question, I think that you have to realize that, you've always got to be doing enough self-analysis. Am I doing what I need to do to succeed? And if I'm not, what else do I need to be doing? And so people that are stuck are usually stuck, quite honestly, Craig, because their processes are not good. It's because they're not doing the things that are going to help them be successful. And and so I think having leaders and having mentors, is very, very important to providing another set of eyes. As a golfer, I relied on other people. Yes, we were a lone wolf business, but you've got instructors, you've got sports psychologists, you've got physio guys, you've got other sets of eyes that are helping give you insight onto, are you doing the right things? Are you heading in the right direction?
Mm-hmm.
People that are stuck, unfortunately, for leaders, don't tend to be a priority because they're stuck, and the high performers are going to tend to get more. They're going to tend to get more attention. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand why that is, but I think the people that are stuck, I'm not going to say it's Darwin's theory, but if you're stuck, you need to be aware of that. And you need to say, well, if I'm going down this path and this is, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. People are tired of hearing that, but it's true. If you agree, the first thing that you've got to do though is the person that you're talking about, Kraig, has got to sit there and look at you and themselves and say, you know what, you're right, I am stuck. I think most people that are stuck don't realize it. So unless you're intentionally aware about things, that's a little bit of a struggle.
I also don't think people spend enough time thinking about the path that they've been on in the different jobs or careers, if you will, that they've had. What was my greatest success here? What was my greatest failure here? How did each help me to move to the next one? Who influenced me? Who did I influence? Like, people don't know their story of their journey. And I think
Right.
that that's really important because it makes you relevant to those you're sitting across from in a business circle who are thinking about, should I buy into them? So I want to talk about brand for a second. In a world of noise, and Gallagher's obviously a big brand. In a world of noise and brands all fighting for attention, sometimes I feel like most people don't even realize that they are a brand themselves, but that's another topic. But what stands out to you as the most important element of professional presence? Okay. And maybe because you've gone from something different. You're trying to be standing over a putt, make something under pressure. Okay. That's your moment in golf. Now you might have another moment. It might be 5 minutes with somebody else in a room trying to help provide them the best service. But presence, what would you feel like is the thing that people need to focus on to be able to stand out and have that presence?
Know what you know and know what you don't know. That situation is going to be different every time that you're in a position to try to create what I think you're calling professional presence, but it's really, your place in the room, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The conversation. And I think so many people in our world they get way over their skis. And they do in the sense of they want to provide a solution so bad that sometimes they don't understand that they might need to pull another person in, or they might need to take a little bit different path than the one they've taken. And so I just think knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know is going to help you spotlight the skills that you're really good at in a meeting.
Looking for a guest speaker for your next event or annual conference? Kraig's message is inspiring and empowering. Visit kraigcanspeak.com to learn more about his topics and find out about his green shoe experience. It's a day your people will talk about long after he's gone. So visit kraigcanspeak.com and mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive your special discount. Now, back to the show.
We're closing up shop here with Charles Warren, and I got a lot of different directions I want to go to wrap this thing up with a few extra questions. But something came to me as I'm sitting here listening to this, and I think back to my time at Golf Channel and covering tournaments and probably interviewing you along the way many times. And my kids were all very young, right? And they would want to go because they'd want to see Tiger, they'd want to see this player. Ricky Fowler was really big, and all that. And yet they were so young, they weren't playing enough golf. They weren't into it as much. And now here I am, not really in it anymore. And they'd probably love it. You've got kids. You just talked about that earlier. Do you ever sit back and go, man, I just like my moment came too early. Now they'd love to be able to watch and they have such a different perspective on it. And all you can do is tell them about it.
It's my biggest regret. It really is one of my biggest regrets. I will tell you something funny though. So for a birthday, maybe 2 years ago, my wife, we had just cleaned out my house at home where I grew up, and we had all these tapes of all the tournaments that I've won that the Golf Channel was nice enough to make for me, and she converted them all to DVD so my kids could watch them. And it was a little bit bizarre for them to see that side of me, but
Yeah.
but it was cool. But yeah, my son is a golfer, a big golfer, loves it. He's a good player, and he I do wish that he had seen that side a little bit. I see what Jonathan Bird's doing now with Jackson. Obviously, we're very close to them, and Charlie and Jackson grew up together on tour. But yeah, there is a little bit of regret there. But that's life. It's just a different world. And to that point though, all these young guys now, man, I don't, the average age of a tour player or average age of a kid at daycare is going down significantly. Just because the players are so much younger than we were. But yeah, I wish that my kids had seen that side of me. But it's fun being home more. it's all a trade-off. It's a yin and a yang. And I think being able to be at home more when they're at this age is definitely absolutely invaluable for sure. And on these DVDs, there's a lot of you're on a lot of them interviewing me actually. So that's
That's
pretty
funny.
neat.
That's funny. Platform. Okay. You had a big one. You've got a different one now. My platform is very different. I love being on a stage, impacting people, whether it's a keynote or doing my workshop. I love it because I feel like I can affect people a lot more in that arena, if you will, than the arena of having a TV camera in front of me and a microphone. Just my belief. If you were on the full-time speaking circuit, all right, do you know what the title of your talk would be? You ever thought about that? Do you have a message that you share to people when you're given that platform?
If you were to ask anybody in my office, what are my two things, they're going to tell you, and be intentional and be aware. And I can go more into detail on that, but those are my two things. Is and I just think the more that we rely on technology and AI and this out of office thing is a whole nother wormhole we're not going to go down. But
Yeah.
I just think it is so important for anybody to be intentional about the way you attack things, your process, the way you treat people, the way you think people treat you think people treat of you, how you treat them. Just
Yeah,
be
sure.
aware of that. Be aware of your influence on situations. Be aware of, sit around a room, be aware of body language, whether it's in a sales situation or somebody that's having a bad day in your office that you might just need to go say, hey, you good?
Mm,
Stuff like that. I just think that people, because on our phone so much, people are just less aware of everything.
yeah.
And I think that's something that just, it's just human nature to be compassionate about a situation that you're aware of. And I think, just knowing, kind of understanding that is important.
Two things before we go. Is there something you still want to accomplish? All right. Either personally or professionally that fuels you, like that you think about, like, I still want to do this.
Yeah, so it's not golf related, but I would say work related. I think there's revenue metrics and all those types of things, but I just want to I want to I want to, that Matthew McConaughey thing that he did. Somebody said, who's your idol? And he said something like me in 10 years. And I think,
Mm,
that's really what drives anybody that's very process driven. Is I just want to be the best version of myself in 10 years so I can look back and say that I affected the most people. I did the best in my business, all those types of things. And I think, you know, in the business world, there's just never, winning the Masters or, winning, an NCAA championship. I'm not going to
mhm.
say all my goal settings in the past, but I think they become more abstract kind of the later in life you get.
Yeah.
And so just being a good dad, being a good business person, being a good partner to all my business partners, and being a good friend to all my friends. I think those are really valuable things that I'm proud of.
If you walk into my office, Charles, you'll find a green shoe, which is a big part of what I do now. You'll find a book, which is something that was really important for me to put out there. And above my head, you'll see a picture of Arnold Palmer on the bridge at St. Andrews because he influenced me and the way I tried to carry myself through everything that I've been a part of in business, making people feel like they were the most important person in the room and carrying yourself with class and dignity for whatever brand you represent, including your own. My last question is this legacy, that topic. Have you thought about what you want that legacy to be? Because you just said in 10 years, a better version of yourself. And how would you tell the story of your tracks to success?
Wow. So, I think legacy can be defined a bunch of different ways, but I think at the end of the day, I would love to have created and built a business to where, people say he built two businesses and he did them successfully. He did them the right way. He did them with culture and ethics. And, you know, that's something that's very admirable, I would say,
Mm.
is being able to build two successful businesses, one by myself and obviously one with a bunch of different teams. So, um, I, it's a hard question to answer. I would want to. That would have been a better prep question for me to think about. But I'll have a good answer for you, but it'll be in like 30 minutes.
Well, I'm going to tell you, your legacy is interesting to me. And I'll wrap with this. You were a really fun guy to cover and root for. You kept it real. You kept it fun amidst a world, if we can be honest, of a lot of ego and a lot of people focused very much on being their own personal CEO of themselves. And you always seemed to be someone who was interested in others. You're obviously making a big impact, and that's why you were so interesting to me to bring on this. So I've had a microphone with you before, and I've got one today. And your legacy is about being a class act and not just a competitor, but a real contributor. And I appreciate the time we've been able to spend.
Well, I appreciate that, Craig. I think business principle number one, people want to do business with people they like and they trust. And in my prior life, you were someone that I liked a lot and I trusted a lot. And I think that was something that people don't need to overlook is as PGA Tour golfers, they're leaning on you guys to tell their story and tell it correctly and tell it with emotion and being intentional and being aware of situations.
Yeah.
And I appreciate everything that you were for all of us during that span.
Well, thanks for spending some time. I've enjoyed the heck out of it. We'll talk soon.
Yep. Talk to you soon, bud.
Friends, success isn't just about the look of your resume. It's about the way you look, and dressing for success in the workplace is important. The way you look out of the workplace is part of your brand as well. Ahead, our official headwear partner, is all about helping you show off your best self. A hat says a lot about you, and Ahead doesn't just follow trends, they set them. Available at pro shops, resorts, and big sporting events around the country, and also online. By listening to this podcast, you get a chance to save big. Visit aheadusashop.com, use the code TTS30, and receive 30% off your order. That's aheadusashop.com, using the code TTS30. 30% off just for you. Ahead, the finest brand in headwear and the official headwear of Tracks to Success. It's time for Getting Ahead, and today I want to talk about what it means to pivot without losing your purpose, and I think that's a really important thing to remember. Charles Warren didn't stop competing when he left professional golf. He just shifted the arena a little bit, and that's the thing about identity. It's not tied to a title or a tour card or a trophy. Or in my case, it's not tied to a TV camera or a microphone, which has been my arena for impact over the years. At some point, we all have to pivot to some degree, and success is and will always be tied to how you show up, how you prepare, and how you lead when the cameras, if we can use that as an analogy, are not rolling. The best leaders, what do they have? The ones making real impact? Well, inside companies, those are the ones who take what made them great before and apply it in a way that actually lifts others now. So here's my question for you. Are you holding on to who you were, or are you actually building on it? And I think that's really important. We have to build on our past history and make ourselves better. Charles didn't walk away from the game of golf. He brought the mindset with him into business, into relationships, into leadership. So let's take a page from his playbook, shall we? Embrace the pivot. I think we need to, because it's going to happen to all of us. And don't be afraid to grow into something new. If you do that without fear, your tracks to success will be a whole lot easier. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with Charles. I'm Kraig Kann. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show for more great interviews and Kraig's thoughts on reaching your highest personal and professional summit. Find it wherever you get your podcast and on the Kraig Kann YouTube channel and kraigcanspeak.com.